Echoes of stone on digital streams, a whisper of history in our modern dreams. Foundations laid, a story told in marble white and circuits cold. Phones buzz with politics and trade. Now screens all glow, a new parade. Chariots raced on cobbled ground. Now highways stretch, the same sounds found. The wheel of time, it turns and turns. A fire renewed forever burns. We build our Rome of glass and light, and pray it stands throughout the night. Aqueducts flowed with purpose strong. Our pipelines hum a different song. The pantheon stood against the sky. Our towers rise, reaching just as turns, a fire renewed forever burns. You built our Rome of glass and light, and pray it stands throughout the night. Appear in every wall. We hear the faint ancestral call. Will we heed the signs and change our way, or watch our empire fade away? Fade away like rain.
This is not a toothpaste. It's a revolution for your teeth. Remineralize, strengthen teeth, all natural ingredients, essential oils, minerals, salts. Alpha Vedic Dental Solutions System. That's alphavedic.com/civilization. You know, we're always trying to bring you the best products here that we think will enhance your life, especially if supply chains break down further or if there's some disruption in our lives here. It seems in the news more and more possible, but hey, who knows? Maybe it's a mind game. But what is not is keeping your dental health up. And not a lot of people are talking about this. We always see the storable foods. But what about dental care during these same emergency situations? Will your toothpaste eventually run out? Well, if it does, then what? So like I say, this whole micro gut biome is driven by your oral cavity first. So take a look at what they have, alphavedic.com/civilization. Every purchase you make helps keep our live radio show and podcast on air, bringing you more information just like this. alphavedic.com/civilization. That link is in the show notes below. And as always, I appreciate your valuable time and joining us in this ever and most important conversation as we move forward in our world. Hey everyone, are you ready to grow your own fresh, delicious vegetables, herbs, and flowers this season? If you're looking for the highest quality heirloom and organic seeds, I've got the perfect company for you, True Leaf Market. They've been a trusted seed company since 1974, offering 3,000 types of non-GMO varieties, everything from classic heirloom tomatoes and peppers to rare herbs, microgreens, sprouting seeds, and beautiful flowers. All those seeds are open pollinated, pure, and perfect for home gardeners or anyone wanting healthy, flavorful produce without chemicals. What I love the most is their huge selection, fast shipping guarantees, plus options for bulk if you're going big. If you're excited to start your garden this year with real, authentic heirloom and organic seeds, click the link in the description box below. Check out TrueLeafMarket.com. You won't regret it. Happy planting, and thank you for supporting the channel and this broadcast.
Please remember to sign up for our show notes. With Civilization Cycle podcast, you can learn what to expect as society resets. Agriculture, economy, tech, and history all have mappable cycles, and these cycles affect every aspect of our lives. We can navigate the chaos and thrive together with up-to-date news and information. Also, if you like the content we have here on Civilization Cycle, think about fueling the discussions and the show by buying us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Civilization Cycle. And thank you for all the support.
And welcome to the Civilization Cycle podcast live radio show every Thursday night, 10 p.m. to midnight. Well, this doesn't seem to be ending anytime soon. There's the energy disruption, plastics disruption, fertilizer disruption. So, what do we forecast for the rest of the summer? Last month, others were saying if this didn't resolve itself within 30 days, then we were heading into famines, food shortages, elevated prices for all of our world, including the Western nations that would be hit hard. Now, it's one thing when you're spending 40% of your disposable income or 50% of it on food. Those types of nations, those are going to flare off first. So we're going to look on the horizon and we're going to see distant early warnings in places like Pakistan and Sudan and Bangladesh. They will burn first. And when I say burn, Egyptian food riot burning. And then with the disruptions in circuit board plastics, we're going to start to see disruptions in all of our electronics. 70% of a certain type of plastic that's used for creating circuit boards, those green circuit boards that we see in all of our devices, that's disrupted. 70% is no longer being manufactured. So obviously we have some maybe laying around the planet. Most of those the factories are just in time delivery for that. They're not going to have a warehouse full of different boards because they change by the month, by the year. So there's going to be a disruption in electronics. So you can look at that. Oh, wait, weren't we told that we would buy less electronics? We'd only get a few different changes of clothes after the 2030 reset goals. So here's another check the box on one of these goals that's being met. We already know that we're going to fly less. Meat's going to get much more expensive. You're going to eat less meat. The gasoline's going to get very high price. I would predict over $10 a gallon if this continues, and we're going to get into the end of June, and there'll be $9 to $10 a gallon in the United States. You'll drive less. Now they're talking about buying less electronics because the circuit board computer plastics aren't going to be there. How many more of these can we tick off the box before you start to see that it's a plan, that everything is purposely being destroyed off of our planet to bring us into a new system? Talking about some timelines tonight, and also hot off the wire, China passed a bunch of new laws just yesterday that if anybody, any country, obviously pointing to America, interferes with their supply chains, which means oil from Iran, they have the right to confiscate all assets, monies, technology from these very companies from that host nation inside China, meaning they're going to swoop everything. They already know this is coming to a conflict edge end anyway. So the next thing is not just us and Iran, but you'd be looking at a little more because they're sending multiple sets of tankers in a fleet over to Iran. It's going to be launching their oil fleet here in the next few days. There's a major 4-day holiday right now in Asia because of Labor Day. And, they take extra advantage. We might get 1 day, in the US for May 1st. Over here, it's a full-on 4-day thing. So after that next week, they're going to be launching multiple oil tankers at the same time to sail in a fleet over and get their oil. A provocative measure to try to break the blockade and cause a massive international incident. That's what's on tap for the beginning of next week to start off. Now, how fast will these tankers transit? It takes about 30 days. Which is really strange because Martin Armstrong's algorithm and computer talks about the flare-up again of a hostile war action somewhere in June. So if these tanker fleet were to, say, launch May 8th or something like that and get over about 3 weeks later, that would be in June, and that would be a direct provocation. So the U.S. is going to have two choices: fire on these Chinese ships, board them, and try to stop them, which would cause an instant war between China and the United States. Or the Chinese blockade is totally broken open and there's not a single thing they can do. So it's going to be one of the outcomes, and we shall see. But that's why they passed the laws to confiscate anything. So, Ransom, the title that you chose tonight was absolutely correct. It doesn't seem like it's ending anytime soon. And I do like that quote that was in the song I think you created there. Watch our empire fade away. That's where we sit.
Yeah. I asked the AI about 20 minutes before the show to make me a song based on civilization cycles, and that's what it came up with.
That was a trippy song. It reminded me of like traveling in Thailand back in the day and just being on the beaches and all, Buddha bar and kind of, that collage of stuff back in the day. Very much reminded me. I was wondering if you'd created that yourself. See, the AI, artists are going to have a difficult time. Even videos, they can whip something. You already see YouTube overtaken by AI bots anyway with their
Right.
together news articles, but now it's music. So where do we sit? As the construct of humanity is absolutely being ripped to a shred here. So
Well, they're writing the articles, they're making the news, they're writing the news, they're writing the speeches. It'll make a song for you, it'll do all kinds of stuff, but it doesn't grow food for you yet.
might destroy food though if it given
Yeah.
the chance on a robo dogs. Just give it a minute there.
Here, well, I got a
Mount the
special,
flamethrower on your garden.
right? I have this really short video that I wanted to play before we got into the headlines to just show everybody kind of like what era we're in. And then we'll go in the headlines there.
Of drought and famine.
Lacks the power to stir our hearts. The simplest thing in the world is to just turn all this off. Turn off babies who are near death simply because they have no food or water. I can't. I've seen too much.
Yeah, they don't play those no more. But
Was that Sally Struthers? Was that a Sally Struthers ad? Can you roll it one more time, Maestro?
Well, I didn't finish the whole thing because, like, I don't want nobody to call. I don't even know if the 800 number works anymore. But I just, and it's not funny. I'm not laughing at the starving kids in the video. I'm laughing at knowing that that's about to what you're about to start seeing on all of the streaming platforms. They shove the commercials in between everything on YouTube, on Hulu, Netflix. You're about to see a bunch of that. I've already seen some of it on the antenna TV.
Yeah, do you think they'll
Drought and famine.
Lacks the power to stir our hearts. The simplest thing in the world is to just turn all this off. Turn off babies who are near death simply because they have no food or water. I can't. I've seen too much. But I've seen something else too. I've seen babies come alive with new health because people have called and become Save the Children sponsors. That's why we urge.
Save the children, man.
Turn it off, dude. Turn it off. Unplug.
I know, but that was like the late 80s right there, early 90s. And then here we are in 2026. And that's not really coming on the TV, but I'm telling you, give it like 2 or 3 years. And even though Sally Struthers didn't ever look like she was missing a meal, she wanted to help feed the kids there and stuff like that. You remember there were a bunch of jokes about that's why the kids never got the food, is because she was in charge of taking the food over there. And it reminds me of Sam Kinison before he made a whole stand-up about Sally Struthers and the thing, and he was talking about watching TV late at night, and then you see one of these things, and he says, "Why are they all out there in the desert? That's why there's no food. Leave the desert, go to where the food's at." I'm sorry, it's not a funny topic, really, though. It's kind of serious.
No, it is though, because you got to think why is it that Africa has far more resources than the United States and Canada? Can they not find the resources and put the people where the resources are? I'm always baffled at the mismanagement of Africa. I know a lot of it was done through the purposeful mismanagement to keep resources offline until we needed them at the proper time. And now Africa seems to be coming online again. And it seems to becoming a superpower continent because we need the resources, because the rest of everybody in the world's like a NIMBY, not in my backyard. So let's just go, all right, now African resources are online. Let's just install the correct government. I saw, where was it? Cote d'Ivoire just took $880 million World Bank loan. So, that's going to be spent correctly, right? Not. They needed something over there for critical minerals that needed to be brought online. No, but I'm just looking at this, like, is everybody in Africa the most corrupt person on the planet that's in a leadership position there? I mean, after the last 150 years, are you telling me not a single leader has got enough bodyguards and army around them to say, no, we're going to do this for our country? Is the world's military outside of Africa so powerful that they destroyed and murdered every single person that was trying to do something good for their nations? Out of 150 years and not even a single one survived? You think being in Africa that you would be able to control that region better than the outside forces? Just asking a question. I know
Well,
it's on a knife blade here, but it can go either direction, right? And
that's
maybe
a
it's supposed to.
that's a really touchy subject because there's a lot of factors there. There are several nations that were ran by Western powers that started to do good, but then the Western powers left for one reason or another. And I don't know what the exact reason is, but they couldn't come to terms with making a management system from within their own country. And then you have other countries that have an influx of people that don't like the people that built the civilization there. And it's not all about Western powers raping the resources. There's a problem there with warlords, religious factions, war factions, stealing the food, like you said. Even if we send aid, I mean, I'm sure everybody's seen the movie Black Hawk Down. That was a movie about us sending in United Nations food aid. And what would happen is warlords would instantly seize it, and then they would decide who got the food. And you're going to see that situation spiral out of control in the Middle East and Africa very soon again. So, like the same scenes, like I said, it's like we're watching 90s TV here. And we're talking about, going in different places. Um, Part of it's just mainly management, though. They can't seem to come up with either people from their own country that can manage, like electricity and running water and all that stuff. And even if they could, they're stopped by factions of people that would rather have violence and control over any whatever resources there is. It's the classic story of human nature, I think. They're hardcore, but you know, I don't know.
Well, that's where Gaddafi, Muammar Gaddafi, and our favorite Iraq leader were thrown out because they were so strong armed that they could control the entire nation. So those warlords were checked and under control. So those nations prospered. Saddam Hussein, that nation was a prosperous nation before we destroyed it. Same with Libya. Whether you like the people in charge, whether you like Gaddafi or not, or if you liked, anything in the Middle East, and again in Syria, Assad, like he strong armed and could control with such ferocity all these warlords that things were able to get done in the country. And there was some, growth of what you would consider things were free in these countries. They didn't like fuel's 25 cents a gallon. There was free water, free electricity. They're free for a lot of things that we would consider free education. Like these strong armed leaders controlled those warlords. So, Africa did have some, but we've taken them all out of power. And then we left a warlord remnant controlled splice of the planet there. Muammar Gaddafi, he was doing the waterworks project to tap that primary water source, primary water in the southern areas where the pooling of one of the Great Lakes during the 6,000 year mid-Holocene era, the Great Lakes of Africa, the mega lakes. Well, that water where it pooled directly under the earth there was a primary water source, and they were just pumping it out back on the surface again. And their last test project was like 100,000 acres of sorghum in the middle of the desert down near, if you go to the southern edge of Libya, down there near Chad. And it was becoming a green zone out there. And what's the first thing we did? We blew up all the waterworks. We blew up every single water pipeline that they had in the country that Gaddafi had put in. So, Saddam Hussein also, you looked at Iraq prior to our invasion. Yeah, there was some violence. That was the controlling powers, no different than our own government going in and eliminating anybody who was a threat to the government. You think you can get away with that in America? Talk to anybody who's ever tried that. They're all dead.
Right.
Now,
Well,
there's no difference between us and them. So you look at that. Why did we remove those functional countries that had very high GDP and growth and social systems that worked, and then we just obliterated all three of those?
Well, that's a very good question, but Gaddafi and the rest of that's more of a Middle Eastern powers
Yeah.
that were controlling that. So that's kind of different than the rest of the whole of Africa where there's other issues going on. But they would have led the way for the other African nations to follow kind of in the example. So that got turned off. And then you got what's going on in South Africa at the very extreme other end of stuff where civilization is going in the wrong direction there. And part of that are philosophies like, ones that don't really work. Now, a lot of people argue that China is the shining example of how communism can work because they have, a giant empire. They have high tech, they have military, they have all of these different things, and they're a high functioning society despite being communist. And but we all know about the rough patches it took to get there, the road that it paved to get to the spot they're at. And it's a continuing project, but so is capitalism. Either way, these two are kind of going to go to head soon, and there's really no way around that. And if you just, you might not get it at the more tabloid sites. Like right now, if you went to the mainstream, and I'm calling almost all of the mainstream tabloids. So you could go from Drudge Report, ABC, CBS, NBC. You really have to go through it and look for the needles and the haystacks about stories that are actually talking about the food situation, because everything else is the tabloid TMZ style. We recently had another attempted assassination, so that blocked up the entire social media and media for several days in a row. But if you look and you find the needles, you get this: Middle East war shock ripples through Asia, Pacific fuel and supply chains.
And now, wait, can you go down? I spent some time in Nepal before, so can you scroll down on that article? See, this is in Kathmandu. I mean, that place was a wreck anyway before, so not critical of it. It's just, they tried to go when the king was there. So take me back to the 1990s. The royalty was in power, and everybody was like, no, all the tourists, you're not sharing enough money out west, and we're going to overthrow the government. We're going to have communism there. Well, the place has been a complete wreck. Non-constant electricity, bridges still haven't been repaired since the Civil War back in like the early 2000s. It was always a nightmare for fuel lines anyway. So this is nothing new there. So don't be like, oh, it just started yesterday there. That's absolutely untrue. But the excessive shortages for cooking gas and fuels is now hitting to making it be like, damn, that's a big problem there. Before it was a nuisance and it was a daily occurrence, but now it seems to be of something of a greater scale. India as well.
Right. Yeah, and see, this graph right here is just showing the dramatic drop in ships that have been going through the strait specifically. So you went from a high right here at the last high at a 141. I think it had several more that were a little higher than that, but you got 141 ships down to 4 ships.
And most of those, or at least 114 of them that are behind the blockade, were carrying fertilizer for our world. And you're looking at least 60,000 tons per. So we're looking at millions of tons stranded behind the wall, for a better term, the water wall. That's just not coming out right now. So it's not going to be applied in time. So even if they were to undo and unsnarl that tomorrow, the fertilizer still wouldn't hit the shores to be able to apply to the planting anyway. So global crop yields are looking at I've seen 13% all the way to like 20 or 21% of reduction this year based on the loss of all this fertilizer. So I was coming back saying, did the USDA lie about the numbers of carryover stock, or like how much food we've been holding in the silos, the warehouses, the barges in America? Because if they've been lying about that, which their known mission statement is to control and stabilize financial and grain and agricultural markets, not about giving you the true information. So if they've been lying about how much grain we have in storage in America, and we're down 20% on our yield this year, that's going to create a problem. And that's when not a lot of people are looking out that far.
Yeah. Like I was saying, they're not putting this at front page. They're not making people worry about possible
Wait, what's that headline?
famines.
Can you read that headline? It's in the gray there. I can't see
Oh,
it. So
sorry. It says food inflation to continue if West Asia war goes on, according to
it
the
has
UN.
gone on. It's continuing to go on. So where's the
Right.
disconnect?
Southeast Asia's coming food crisis. So I always mess that country up.
Myanmar. Dig down in there. Can you
Myanmar.
scroll down a little bit? What's the
Myanmar.
reasoning for all this?
It's the same reasoning on every article. You'll find that it's because of fuel crises, fertilizer, liquid natural gas, and then they're talking about 45 million people will suffer from acute hunger in 2026.
Oh, wait a minute. I saw the numbers at 386 million. That's like literally about 10 times lower than the actual affected numbers. I would think about 500 million people are going to starve this year. Like
Well, I would
serious
think.
hunger.
Well, last week we did, we asked the AI and it said 514 million people. But that was worldwide that it was saying. This is, I guess, just for Southeast Asia.
Oh, okay. Thanks for breaking that down. I was just like, wait, I get on my tangents, man.
Yeah. And then you got all of the companies and the transit companies, the packaging companies, the wholesalers, the resellers. All these guys are tacking on their own little tariffs, their own little charges, because things are difficult, right? Food suppliers are adding surcharges to the foot of rising cost of fuel. That could mean even higher prices for groceries. That's not what it said. I just
Now go
telling
down
you.
in the article. There's Safeway. That's a major supermarket chain. Like, does it tell you go down a little further in the article? I'm really curious, like who's involved in that, and if they tell you what the surcharges are going to be.
Well, they're trying to say that they're not going to pay it.
Sunrise Farms, CTS Foods, Maple Leaf, and Tree of Life are adding fuel surcharges.
Right. So, do you get stuff from them?
Yeah, and
I
the
bet.
post office is also, I saw that they're adding a 5 cent per kilogram charge. Our U.S. Postal Service is raising rates here, I think this month, or they did already, one of the two.
See, and these guys, they're just adding, just a couple cents here and
Just a
there. Don't
couple
worry about it.
cents on everything you buy. If it's not dimes, quarters, and nickels on every single, so think about how many items literally. So, Ransom, how many things have you purchased throughout the month? 50, 100, doesn't even matter. A stick of gum, that counts as one. Every single food item you buy, one box of food, one bag of food, one thing of steaks, or that counts as one. So each one of those is going to have an extra attached to it: 10 cents, 25 cents, 50
Right.
cents.
Right. Well, we try to, if we can, shop all at once so that we just have stuff for a while packed back. But sometimes, with life and stuff, you don't get to do that. And then that's when you start hitting the surcharges. So if you're going, right now and you're not really buying in bulk, this is the perfect time for people to take serious. And I don't want to, I do want to harp on this, is that this is the perfect time. If you've never grown food, if you have grown food, but you quit growing it, if you like to just garden with flowers, you need to just start growing a little extra just because. And it's going to help out everybody in the long run. And then
Yeah,
here's
and I would
another
say
one.
about flowers, you can make herbal teas out of that. So people who are looking for a higher value product than just growing like lettuce to trade with your neighbor, think about flowers. There's an enormous amount of medicinal flowers that you can make teas from after you dry that. Once you learn the process of growing it, drying it, storing it, and you have a high value product, you can then trade that on with somebody. Instead of a few bucks worth of lettuce, you're talking dozens of dollars or more for dried leaves off of some of these medicinal flowers. And if you get a whole range of medicinals and herbals, then you could have an apothecary. I think that's how you say the name of just natural herbs on a wall of different jars full, like you do out, and you go to the natural medicine or the Chinese doctor, and they have it all fresh there. And you got, just saying, there's a lot of opportunity right now.
And I find this funny that this is the thing. It doesn't matter which article you're going to go to. They're all going to talk about how the third of the world's fertilizer and resources go through the Strait of Hormuz. They're all using the same exact reason. So there's a lot of price gouging and fraud and different things that because they came up with the opportunity to do it. But everything, the main point is that all food is going up. If we haven't been harping on that for like years now you're seeing the proof in the pudding. Literally, the pudding costs more, meat's more, eggs are more, milk is more, your gasoline to go get those things is more. So it doesn't matter what the real reason is, it is happening. So it doesn't matter, like, if you're blue or red or old or young, you still got to pay the surcharges to exist here, which are going up for everything.
So I guess that old Pink Floyd song, how can you have any pudding if you don't eat your meat? We might have to go without the meat and just have pudding.
Meat pudding.
Meat pudding.
No, but no, I just went through. I didn't even read most of this. It was just the point to find, the headlines that are not at the top, and they're there, but they don't really want people reading them yet. Wait till the midsummer. That's when that'll be
Then
top of the news.
that's when they want you to panic on it. This whole plastic shortage too is not hitting the news, but even out here in Asia, they're asking everybody to curtail their plastics usage, meaning if you don't need the bags, don't buy it. If you don't need a straw when you go get like a drink somewhere, don't take it. Save the plastics, recycle your bottles. You don't need a new water bottle. Why don't you get a water filter and refill your bottle that you're using? Please don't buy the fresh bottles. By the way, you're going to get a 15-cent extra price now on each new bottle you buy. In addition, so the prices went from, say, 30 NT, which is about $1. Like a lot of the drinks here are still $1, $1.25 or something from a 7-Eleven kind of fast food or fast, convenience store type of thing. Still around $1, but it jumped from $1. It went from 30 to 45. That extra 15 is the bottle charge now. All right, that's what you're getting hit with, is bottle charge. So there's this whole thing about, hey, conserve plastics and reuse bottles if you need to, just for water. Don't be buying all those brand new water bottles if you don't have to.
Right. And imagine if you live in the really hardcore lefty environmentalist countries that, regulate all that stuff already, where you put it, where you throw it away. Here there's no recycling here. It goes in the garbage. It goes to the landfill. And what's really messed up is for a while I was helping a guy that would clean out houses after people would die or couldn't pay their mortgage or whatever, and you would have to go get all of their possessions basically, and you get maybe 5 hours to clean it out, sort it, and throw everything in the dump because you can't hoard it or take it to your place unless you have a massive warehouse or something. And I got to see, endless amounts of crystal, all kinds of really nice heirlooms and antique stuff just get thrown in the garbage and compacted because there wasn't nobody had the time or wherewithal or space or the knowledge to even recognize what half of it was. And that's what's happening to most things. And now you get to this future, and it reminds me of, if you've ever seen the Book of Eli, where the guy gets in literally a sword fight with people because they want his plastic bottle, because there's just no plastic bottles. And that's kind of far-fetched, but people do start valuing things when things start to disappear. And here's another one out of France. Will food prices increase in France due to the Middle East conflict? And it's talking about the rising inflation from energy prices comes after annual price negotiations close. Move over here. It's the same thing. Rising costs forcing 3M UK households to skip meals, which, by the way, I've always only ate basically one meal a day, maybe snacked once in a while. So I'm already accustomed to this style of living. But for people that eat 3 times a day and work hard outside, this is going to be a hard thing to, deal with. It says Consumer Insight Tracker shows 85% are worried about food prices, and a majority think the economy will deteriorate. Well, they think that for a reason, because, it's everywhere. Here it is, 3.8% as food price pressure eases London. It's easing with only this much inflation. And really, it's everywhere. Food prices in Japan set to rise as war drives up cost of plastic packaging. So this one isn't even being blamed on the food either. This is the packaging. And, maybe some of these countries will start realizing there's just too much packaging. And and a lot of this reminds me of the little bit of college that I did, where we thoroughly discussed this idea of when globalization meets localization and the just-in-time shipping model that came out of Japan itself, where there's not storehouses or warehouses full of things. It only gets there right when the items run out. So somebody checks a little electronic thing and says, we're running out of this, and then a new pallet shows up. So that means that when you get a run on things, it's totally empty until new shipments arrive. And then, like I was saying,
Can you zoom in on the price tags there on Japan Times? Can you zoom in on those price tags just to see what the drinks cost?
Let's see here. They probably just used the stock image, but I think I can do.
Yeah, because right now, think about the exchange rate's around 160 for $1. So, I mean, comparatively to a price when you go to a petrol station or a gas station in America, everything you look is $2.50, is $1.99, $2.99. It's hard to find anything for under $1, right, or about around $1. Even those kind of black currant juice right there is only, if it's 160 for $1, it's only 198. So somebody look at those 78, that's like way under $1 for a beverage out of one of these places, which is hard to even fathom in America.
Right.
The one on the second shelf there, those are different kind of teas. You got the green tea, and then the one sort of like the orangish bottle, that's oolong tea or oolong cha. And then you got the lemon just under her armpit there. That's a lemon drink for 58. 160 is the exchange rate. And then over the very top, yeah, it's green tea up there, 78. So think about that. Those things are about looking at about 50 cents for a bottle. That's why it's so cheap to travel in Japan right now. So cheap.
Yeah, anything,
Think about the price.
any one of those things, if you went to the convenience store in the U.S., is going to be $3 or more,
Yep, every single one.
and $3 is cheap. So if you're getting drinks for $3 at a convenience store, that's actually pretty cheap. Even a 20-ounce bottle of soda, I think, is probably close to $3.
Yeah, so you can escape the inflation if it comes push to shove, and you're really getting priced out, and you're in a rental unit, um, or whatever. You can just fly into a different nation and escape the inflation. Like if you can get a flight out, you're gonna probably have to do a cost benefit to see if you lose your deposit or whatever. But if it gets really too expensive to live in America, you can always fly to a different place where it's cheaper, like Japan. You get 3 months to figure it out. Then you can jump over somewhere else for 3 months to like Thailand. And then you can jump or 2 months there. And then another, 3 months in Taiwan or whatever. And then down to Indonesia for 2 months. And you can travel super cheaply. You can outrun the inflation because a lot of these countries, are very differently priced. It's shocking how expensive America is. Truly, it's shocking. I mean, Europe is even cheaper now than the States. I think America's, except for Switzerland, I think on the daily living, I think America's at the top, one of the top nations on the planet at the highest cost of living anywhere on the planet. So you can escape that. And it's just going to keep getting more expensive. Like, don't delude yourself. It's not going to get any cheaper. And you're up at the FAO. What's that? Food price index declines in January. Yeah, but I just looked at it again. It was back up again in March.
Well, that's kind of why I brought this up, to make people remember that at the beginning of the year, food was on its way down.
Mm-hmm.
But now it's totally reversed that and is going completely in the other direction. And that wasn't that long ago. And then we're talking about all of this drought and water supply issues, wildfires, just to add on to that. And each country has these kinds of little supposed emergencies or real emergencies, both, that they speculate and they change the prices of things, not necessarily reflecting reality of demand and supply. It's just going up. Everything's going to go up. That's the key thing, that no matter what you're looking at, no matter what you're blaming it on, it's going up.
Yeah, look at the numbers right down the second paragraph there. More than 61% of the lower 48 states in moderate to exceptional drought. Now, me being one of those guys who looks at longer term cycles, there's only been 3 times. Yeah, they even have it since 1895. There's only been 3 times that this drought severity index has reached this level. Only 3 times since that period. So we're talking about 135 years of time. And the Dust Bowl era was one of those times. So
Right.
they're saying that we are coming into an equivalency of the Dust Bowl. Now, if this rolls and holds on all the way through the planting season and into the crop maturation season with the winds that are coming up, we're going to get a Dust Bowl. And if it doesn't get any precipitation coming into harvest season, that we will get into that feedback loop of never ending Dust Bowls. And they're like trying to figure it out, game it out in today's world of what would happen if we had a Dust Bowl event occur in the central United States like it did in the 1930s. Would it be as severe or not? That's the question. But there's a lot less open land for dust to form on than there was in the 1930s.
Well, it looks like, even if there's a big dust bowl and everybody's parched, that they could just go to what I'm assuming they meant the 7-Eleven and get a large drink for 59 cents of that nice, carbonated tap water with some 5 fructose corn syrup.
An artificial red dye number, whatever, that'll put you in early grave. And the blue ones too. Oh, you got to love it. That blue is so natural.
Right. Well, for the people, somebody said waste of money, and if you've been that poor when you've only got 60 cents, that thing is a lifesaver, even though it is that stuff. But
Man,
yeah, now,
I have gone through life where I made bad decisions and ended up really down to my last couple bucks too. And that's truly like a box of mac and cheese or something. You'll be like, oh, fuck, right on.
right. Yeah, and then back into it. I mean, there's nothing. It's kind of bizarre because I tried to take off a few days and be outside and just not look at news, not look at nothing. And when I came back, it was literally just everything was the same but intensified. So people are angry or more cranky about whatever TMZ topic is going on in the political parties. We got new more of the same drama. But in the meantime, like we said, the war progresses on. The strait's still closed. The prices are still rising. And even if they get a handle on it, let's be totally optimistic. Say they open that thing up tomorrow, how much backlog and delay is it going to be? Like, say everything just went back hunky dory tomorrow, and they opened that straight up, and shipping commenced like normally, and everybody started getting their products. What do you think the delay would already be from what's just from this month of backlog, I guess you could call it?
6 to 9 months. There's been like thousands of articles written on that already. 6 to 9 months. Like
Right.
it's already baked in. Like you, please understand, this disruption is baked in through the summer, and there's no way to escape it. You're just going to have to deal with it, and that's a great thing. It's going to help us think in different ways to optimize life, solve problems, and find opportunities. Like you can't look at this thing and go, "Oh no, it's coming. I'm just going to sit here and bite my nails and hope that and just wait for the." You need to be proactive on this thing. You need to jump ahead of it because it is here and there's nowhere to run. I firmly believe most of it's on purpose. You know, this whole thing could have been avoided. This could have been opened already. I believe it's a purposeful destruction of the things that allow our society and civilization to move forward because they wanted to bring us into the new system anyway. But during COVID, not enough people would play.
Right. Absolutely. And you know, all of the stuff that they pulled during COVID was the exact same rules, regulations, and ideas that they had lined up for global climate change. Now, you'd think that if that many people participated in a medical, whatever you want to, debacle, that's a good word for it, medical debacle worldwide, where every single country, friend or foe, participated in exactly the same way, the same testing, the same injections, the same masks, the same lockdown of society. They all did it, at least a little bit in each place participated. So that was all the real, plan that they had for global climate change and global warming. They had that all set up. So they got people to do it in COVID. Now, if you hand them an unending war, food shortages, fuel shortages, and other stuff, you don't think they'll use some of those same lockdown tactics again, which I've already been seeing in the news?
Yeah, they will. But you mentioned two sets of scenarios. Okay, so every country in unison jumped in over on the COVID restrictions. But then every country in unison for the last 20 years has been the same talking points and political movements and energy transition through the global warming narratives. Like you're talking about two different events of the same movements parallel through every government across the planet. And now we come into the energy lockdowns. This is number 3
Right.
right here, right now.
And you see that it's the same tactics and the same network and the same logistics that makes it possible to do that.
Yes. And you notice the similarities. So you're watching this copy paste society on dictating and forcing society and civilization to move in a certain direction based on these, I guess, directives. But now it's going to be more of a forced rationing type of scenario. You know, I was laughed at, and people, I still to this day, unbelievably, people will write to me and go, "Dude, nothing's changed. Your projections about how food prices are going to go up are way off." And I'm like, "Wait a minute. Are you not seeing what's going on in the world?" I even had last week somebody go, "Your food projections are just off, man. Those comments you just delete out there and ban the person from your channel." But I had to read there and sit and scratch my head for a minute going, this got to be a troll. This thing can't be real. You're talking about food prices not rising or anything and all these things are happening. Like if it is true, and it may have been like a real person writing that, and I would feel so sorry for them and so sorry for this segment of the population that my heart hurts that they're actually that disconnected and brainwashed from the real world that they actually physically believe that nothing's happening around them. Like how
Well,
atrocious is that for a human being to live like that?
I would have just responded by Google it yourself. Just ask what the food rise is since like 2015. You could pick right there, but you could go back further. And we already showed 2 weeks ago that it was already at 40% and predicted to go up to another 50% in the next 4 years to 2030. So I don't know what they're talking about either. It might be funny to save receipts right now, just as an anecdotal haha in about 10 or 20 years.
I did a video on that just not too long ago where the person had gone into this place called Publix. There's only one of those around our area, so I never really shop there. It's kind of far to drive. It's like 45 minutes from our place. But they bought a cart full of groceries, and now they replicated the cart again just to do that thing because they came across their old receipt. 2.4 times higher in the prices than it was in the year 2000. So a full 240% increase in that thing. Because I was too lazy to do it because they had like 50 items. So I asked, ChatGPT to give me the prices from Publix for all these things, online shopping,
Right.
But a 2.5 times increase. So we're moving into an exponential increase anyway. If looking at like log scales and how things are moving, then you get these usually steps up, and then you get into this exponential phase. We are absolutely going into exponential food pricing where things are going to be repriced by the week or by the month here moving forward. Like that's why they're trying to bring all these on-demand pricing tags across. Like every Walmart across the entire United States is going to have on-demand price tags next year. By the end of this year, they're going to have digital price tags that change by the second, by the minute, depending on the demand.
Yeah,
and the reason they want to get the back of your ID so badly, every chance any store gets to scan the back of your driver's license, is because they can't identify you by certain, like they won't know your blood type. But what they can get out of that driver's license barcode is where you live, where's your zip code, the type of car that's associated with that's on your registry, because you have a registration that goes along with that. So that matches up like what kind of car you're registered with that's on your name. So they know the vehicle make, the vehicle model, and your zip code. So with that just alone, they can put you in a certain price category of your disposable income that you might have available or not have available. And these on-demand price tags, these things that change by the minute or by the second. So two of us could walk into a store and just based on if they're going to do facial recognition or if they're going to do it at the checkout line, like we could have the same exact product, but we would get two different prices based on where we live and what kind of car we drive. That's why they're so desperate to scan the back of your driver's license. Because without that, they're not able to label you into a category. This is the world we're moving into. Now, a lot of people are trying to make these digital price tags illegal and say, no, that's against the law. You can't charge people different based on where they live, what they drive. But Walmart's installing these across, and they're saying, no, it's not going to be for individuals right now. It's going to be for high time periods and seasonal demand that we can raise the prices without having all the employees run through the store to change everything. If we're going to send stuff on sale, or if it comes into a holiday weekend, we can jack the price a little bit, or we can lower the price a little bit. They're talking about a full store here. But I am sure, absolutely, I've been reading a lot of articles about this, on-demand pricing for individuals. The number one thing is they need to get as much data on there. The reason Walmart is so good at this and they're the leaders is they've bought so many data brokers data about you already, but they have like a whole category of people over here that they can't match. The minute you use a driver's license to scan in to buy like a bottle of wine, or you get your tires changed, or anything that you do that can connect a driver's license to your financial and social profile, then they can connect you. And then forever, you're in a certain class, in a certain category, that you will get certain pricing forever. Now, right now, it's such a touchy issue. I'm sure they're just going to do it on the full store on seasonal demand and holidays. But mark my word, in the future, this is the plan they were trying to go to anyway. What you're going to pay and what you can afford to pay and how they can milk you for extra because you have more money that can be milked. The plan for this transition here is removing every single dollar from every single person's pocket into the corporate system as this is in a transition and collapse phase. This whole collapse is not going to happen in a single day. The point of it is slow, gradual, grinding prices to just take everybody's money away to the point where you're going to be punched into a corner. And I'm not sure the timeline on this, but at some point, you're going to be in the back against the wall going, it's too expensive for me to feed my family. I need government help. It's too expensive for me for my rent. I need government. I can't afford $20 a gallon gasoline fuel. I need government help. Once we get there, then we're in the trap because they want you there. And once you get there, social credit scores, social credit systems, then once you take that money, there are going to be stipulations for you to continue to receive it. Okay, next week you have to go get your booster. If you don't get it, your credit's cut off. It has nothing to do with your food. It has nothing to do with your fuel supply. Like, why would I just need to get one of those? Oh, you didn't get your seasonal flu shot. Why the hell do I need that? Well, unless you get that, you can't continue to receive funds. Like, they're going to do all these little tricks to continue. And hell no, what happens with the taxes? Like, how are taxes determined out of this? I'm sure they're not going to give it to you for free. You're absolutely going to be required to pay taxes on the things you receive for free. And then at that point, if you're like, well, I spent it all because I had to eat, well, you owe taxes. So now you have to go do some sort of work service program. The number of days you owe taxes is 22 days. You can report over to Tennessee's Forestry Division and work your 22 days off. You'll be fed and housed there. Once you work off your tax debt, you'll be back and able to go back out into the system again. This is the way it's going to go. It's so clean. If you read the documentation for the last 10 years, they have been talking about this. They need to get us into oh wait, here's the going. I watched Walmart's digital pricing on items change when a customer picked up the shampoo. By the time he got to checkout, it was 17 cents higher. I've seen it change 3 times on different people. That's absolutely true. If you watch these videos on how there's a huge amount of demonstration videos on how this works. It's not a secret. That's the whole thing. The entire advertising industry itself as a whole is all about this. They put up these cameras. You ever walk through a shopping mall? I haven't been to shopping malls, probably in a little while. But when you walk through, sometimes you the camera and you walk by and it'll show your picture and thing. And you're like, oh, don't take my favorite, whatever. If everybody's different in front. They're using facial recognition to tag you. And anytime they can tag you with your facial recognition, and then that can be brought back through a store loyalty card or anything, the prices you get are going to change based on your socioeconomic profile. That's what it is. And this whole thing is the more money you have, the more higher prices you're going to get, and the more money they want to take from you. They want everybody broke and penniless by the time you hit that grave. There is no in between on this. And this transition is coming. It is here. It's not a new idea. I've been going on for 100 plus years. Not really. I would incredibly disagree with you on that. This whole AI push and be able to do things in real time now, this has only been around for a few years. The 100-year plan, yes, I agree with that. When we're coming on these, China operates in the same thing. They're on a 100-year plan. Like in America, we're on a 100-year plan too, although the real powers above it are pushing it every 4 years to twist it so they can continue to move things forward while you're arguing about the elephant and the donkey. Think about that. We argue about 2 different animals while the entire agenda moves forward every 4 years or 8 years behind the scenes, and you're worried about who's wearing what color. And the same thing with this. It is going to continue. This whole march forward of the transition of a system. The ultimate system is going to be hash graph. And at that point, AI and real-time everything, Internet of Things will have blended together. Right now, blockchain is this intermediary step between us right now in AI's present form and blockchain into hash graph and Internet of Things. We're in the transition phase. So you can see to break everything down, then they can reassert it and get you onto the new system plugged in. And then from the new system, once it's plugged in, then it's the entire system's moving forward while those wars going on, whether you look at it or not. They're not running out of water. They're not running out of fuel. They're not running out of electricity. Data centers and all of this preparedness for government is completely 100% pushed, 100% facilitated. All the goods are there. It's just you, the serfs, me too. We're out here. They're cutting our way of life off so they can 100% push into theirs. These artificial shortages are all over the place. But where we sit today, we are at the end of the last world. We are moving into the transition point, and will this take 3 years or 5 years or 10 years? Unknown. But all things keep pointing to 2030. I don't know if that's the bottom crash point at 2030 where the entire new world will be reassembled from that point up, or if that's the last date where everything needs to be mashed in and then the collapse point comes and then it moves forward until the reestablishment of all the supercomputers beyond anything that we can, quantum computing and all these data centers. all your electricity for that. And then suddenly this new financial system comes into being, and you have to have everything of even your DNA has to be put into the database. You're going to be 100% connected into this new system. At that point, they will know exactly what you have. And that's where we're going. So, if you dive into crypto a little more, it's not about cryptocurrency and Bitcoin, although, that's a nice foothold in there. The real system and the real reason they keep talking about the cryptographic dangers of all this quantum computing and quantum, proof wallets that you have to have, and scraping off Satoshi's coins when they do this fork coming up here. It was in November, I think. So one of these idiots that was a Bitcoin developer wants to fork the wallet. They want to fork Bitcoin again and steal all the Satoshi's tokens on their new eCash system. Bizarre as that sounds, but they need this is the beginning transition. First, most people still don't understand anything about crypto. They don't understand how it operates, the cryptographics on this, and the problem solving and these sort of things. And then the proof of work, proof of time, proof of stake tokens, and this whole ecosystem itself. This is moving us to the ultimate end, hashgraph. That is the ultimate. There's layers within that and everything simultaneously. So when you look at some of these supercomputers, how do they operate? Where they're going through dimensionality and solving all problems at the same time, overlapping in time space. The hash graph is very much the same thing on a cryptographic basis. It's layers of duality of time space that are mathematics compressing in on themselves. Everything at once, all the time, in real time, all at once. And then the Internet of Things runs off of that in the background. And then you get these dual systems moving forward. But what do they need? They need our data centers. Without the data centers, none of that can come to fruition. They're trying to tease you out on data centers are going to do this, that, or the other. Data centers are for Amazon, cloud storage and all this security. Bullshit. It's to run the hash graph Internet of Things system. That's why they need so many of them. And you notice there's a certain percentage and a ratio on how many of these data centers are needed for which individual nation. Like, what's the population of a nation is how many data centers need to be out to run this system in the future. Once it's all built out, and it's not yet, but once it is, then we're going to get ready. So I think they've baited us. They keep saying, we need 200 more data centers in America. I think they pretty much have built out what they need for this system. And as the population declines, that they can backfill some of this stuff here. Yeah, go into these numbers for me. Sorry, I got on a ramble and rant there, man.
No, that's what's happening here. $65 billion by 2030. Weird number. They always use that year. I don't know why. Data centers capacity and forecast to reach 110 gigawatts by the end of the decade. Total of 215 billion. That's like a war budget right there. What's going to happen, though, what you were saying is you think they already built them all that they need. People like Musk and them are about to send a lot into space. So it's going to be even more than that. And guess what? His data centers don't have the problems that they do on the ground. They don't need the water to cool. They don't need electricity to run. They're just up there. And once they're up there, they're up there.
Perpetual. Again, I was visiting this movie called Jupiter Ascending just the last few days. And I remember that the reason is the one scene where they flew in to what very much looked like the Earth, completely encapsulated in like a dual rotating sort of, what do you call those things that stabilize when the gyroscope?
Gyro, yeah.
Yeah, but then coming out of there, like what exactly looked like, what you'd see in Dubai, those needles of the Kala Burj covering the planet. And that really made me think about, they are trying to put we are becoming Jupiter ascending technology level planet. Everything above our heads, they are trying to construct exactly what they're showing you in Jupiter Ascending. That is a documentary for the Earth. That is not a science fiction movie. That is a documentary about the technology plan for the future of our planet.
That's the only way that we can go logically anyway. I mean, it just all depends on, if it's more of a transhuman technocrat thing or it's actually something that'll help the population on Earth, which I doubt, because you ever notice that, there's lots of technological growth and toys that people can get and use, but it's all entertainment based. There's not like the little power converter in your house that runs your house. There's not, your cars are not hovering downtown to get groceries or none of that stuff. But, you got spy equipment all through your house. You got a 85-inch TV that watches you, the refrigerator that reports on you, an oven that tells on how many times you've cooked and how much energy you've used. You got smart meters. You got the Wi-Fi's all together, watching everything through the actual Wi-Fi itself. And then, this is part of that. It's not quite a 15-minute city story, but it kind of equates to that, because what they're talking about is the retailer exposure to working poor consumers as gas source. And it goes back to what I was telling you before about the food deserts, the food ghettos, where there's no real grocery stores, but there's things like Dollar Store and the Dollar Tree and the Family Dollar that only sell filler foods, fake foods. They don't, you're not going to go in there and get prime rib unless it's in a box between two GMO buns or something like that. And you can get canned food, but none of the organic canned food, just the regular whatever it is, and everything else is chips, soda, candy, snacks. And that's the diet that they know that you're going to eat when you can't afford to go to town to the grocery store. You're just going to go to the local store, get a couple cans of this and that, and some chips and some soda to get you through. You know that it's not healthy, but you're just trying to make it till the next increment of money.
How much hyperconductive graphene is included in that food supply, do you think?
I don't know, man. And then
On a per gram basis, bro, give it to me.
well, I have no idea.
Can you go down to the chart in that? It looked like an interesting article. If you further down, if you can figure that chart out right there, or even go up to the one that was flowing with. Those are easier to read. Can you click on that chart right there? Yeah. Oh, that's the monthly Brent oil price. So that thing, it just skyrocketed up to 126. So.
And look what it says: flows fully recover by mid-June.
No, that isn't. It's impossible. Like literally impossible. Like nothing is signaling anything of a recovery here. This is a prolonged lockdown, and
this is 2027 too.
And Socrates, that system that they have, has been the number one forecaster on the planet, pretty much. And just like global war and way increased oil's crazy shutoffs and stuff coming in June. So we're not even at anything hostile yet.
Well, they're talking.
Socrates been good to hit that pretty good. So
they're talking about it going down, but look, it doesn't really go down. And even according to their chart, the prices don't get back to where they were until 2028.
If it were to stop today, but again, hear Trump saying, "Oh, we're going to go in and bomb again. We're going to use hypersonic missiles." Iran's going, "No, we're going to do this. We're going to keep blocking it off." It's just there's no end in sight for this thing, really. I mean, Trump will come out with another announcement to soothe the markets and bring them back up after his new dude's confirmed. But beyond that, we are in for this long duration event here. And like I say, I would encourage you to look at Martin Armstrong and check out what they're talking about with the war predictions for Socrates and their AI models. The dude's been he consults governments because it's so correct on their algorithms and what he's been doing. He's been doing this for like 25, 27 years. That's the reason he went to prison, because he wouldn't give the code over to the CIA. They put him in prison 12 years for contempt of court because he wouldn't give the code and release the code back to our American government. He's like, "I will stay in prison forever. I'm never giving you that code because it's so correct to predict political events and outcomes." So they let him out after. And it's also all pointing to June flaring off to the most massive, ridiculous. Like oil's going to shut off. The 20 million barrels will get ripped out of the world's usage here. They're talking like everything stops in the Middle East down to almost zero. Something of this grave nature. So anyway, thank you for joining us for the first hour. We're going to come back. Got some more articles. I got some stuff off of Al Jazeera to show as well. I want to run through the fertilizer headlines and going to talk about China and what they're doing with their new laws to take American everything assets in China as soon as we hit one of their first ships. So come on back. Second hour, the Civilization Cycle podcast. Thank you for joining us Thursday nights, 10 p.m. to midnight. CivilizationCycle.com is where you can find the newsletter right there, and Civilization Cycle over on Buy Me a Coffee /Civilization Cycle. We're going to read some of those comments when we come back as well. Appreciate your time. Come on back, second hour. We'll be right here. Hey everyone, are you ready to grow your own fresh, delicious vegetables, herbs, and flowers this season? If you're looking for the highest quality heirloom and organic seeds, I've got the perfect company for you, True Leaf Market. They've been a trusted seed company since 1974, offering 3,000 types of non-GMO varieties, everything from classic heirloom tomatoes and peppers to rare herbs, microgreens, sprouting seeds, and beautiful flowers. All those seeds are open pollinated, pure, and perfect for home gardeners or anyone wanting healthy, flavorful produce without chemicals. What I love the most is their huge selection, fast shipping guarantees, plus options for bulk if you're going big. If you're excited to start your garden this year with real, authentic heirloom and organic seeds, click the link in the description box below to check out TrueLeafMarket.com. You won't regret it. Happy planting, and thank you for supporting the channel and this broadcast. Product you love, the 72-hour emergency food kit from My Patriot Supply. Not only emergency food, but camping food, and you can prepare that through the week as well. 20 delicious just add water meals. Think about creamy mac and cheese, hearty chili, sweet oatmeal. 2,000 calories a day. You need the calories. You're going to need to think and move. And the mashed potatoes, easier to make than oats, and you can add your own flavors. Goes with anything. For less than a couple of takeout meals at a fast food restaurant, get real peace of mind. And a real question to ask, how long could your family eat without leaving home? My Patriot Supply, click on that link in the description box below. It helps the channel. Truth is hard to say and hard to hear. Most people choose silence. We choose to speak. Your support of our sponsor keeps the Civilization Cycle podcast on air and giving us the courage to keep digging. That link's in the description box below. This is not a toothpaste. It's a revolution for your teeth. Remineralize, strengthen teeth, all natural ingredients, essential oils, minerals, salts. Alpha Vedic Dental Solutions System. That's alphavedic.com /civilization. You know, we're always trying to bring you the best products here that we think will enhance your life, especially if supply chains break down further or if there's some disruption in our lives here. It seems in the news more and more possible, but hey, who knows? Maybe it's a mind game. But what is not is keeping your dental health up. And not a lot of people are talking about this. We always see the storable foods. But what about dental care during these same emergency situations? Will your toothpaste eventually run out? Well, if it does, then what? So like I say, this whole micro gut biome is driven by your oral cavity first. So take a look at what they have, alphavedic.com /civilization. Every purchase you make helps keep our live radio show and podcast on air, bringing you more information just like this. alphavedic.com /civilization. That link is in the show notes below. And as always, I appreciate your valuable time and joining us in this ever and most important conversation as we move forward in our world.
Please remember to sign up for our show notes. With Civilization Cycle podcast, you can learn what to expect as society resets. Agriculture, economy, tech, and history all have mappable cycles, and these cycles affect every aspect of our lives. We can navigate the chaos and thrive together with up-to-date news and information. Also, if you like the content we have here on Civilization Cycle, think about fueling the discussions and the show by buying us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com /civilization cycle. And thank you for all the support.
And welcome back for the second hour right here, the Civilization Cycle podcast. David Dubine along with Ransom Godwin bringing you into the second hour every Thursday night here. Please check us out, civilizationcycle.com. Sign up for the show notes. I'll be getting those out to you tomorrow morning. Also, buymeacoffee.com /civilization cycle. Now, before we were heading on the break, we're talking about some of these movements of and disruptions of our world. Now, the news media's giving us a spackling of dust of things that are coming. It's really not out in there. They're obviously telling you, for those with eyes to see, that there's some, price increases coming for food, fuel, fertilizer, this sort of thing. But really, what does that boil down to in our lives? I was looking for this article that I had on my phone before we were on the break here of a specific type of plastic that is not making out of the Middle East anymore that's used for circuit boards. At the same time, Samsung, I'm on the Korean time, Samsung is also going to be going on strike here, and I was trying to connect those two together. See where we go. So the electronics are going to be disrupted. It's not something that a lot of people are thinking about. The electronics, I mean, it might be on the back, I might get a new phone, a new computer, or something here and there. But what happens if we come to a point where, okay, you can get it, but it's a 6-month or a 1-year wait for that new computer. It's backlogged. They can't get this, that, or the other for production of it. The certain types of different plastics, resins, that sort of thing are not available. So this one part in the computer can't be produced because it's one part. It's like having a car, and I'm sorry, we got to wait on the tires. So you have a fully functional automobile, but you're not going to put Flintstone wheels on that thing. And unless you got the tires, you don't have a car. It'll be the same thing with certain 1 or 2 component parts out of all of our manufacturing industries that will cause the rest of the entire chain to just cease. And electronics looks like it's the next thing on the chopping block for this, because we're going to go into the plastics. Now, Ransom, if you could take it over for me while I find this article here. I'd screen grabbed it. It was off the Hal Turner radio show, and I can't seem to find my screen grab stuff here because I was on a different phone. I myself just got a brand new phone, knowing that what I'm telling you, mine was starting to, I wouldn't say glitch, but it wasn't as robust as it was. So for me, I just got a new phone. They're way cheaper out here in Asia because they're produced here. Now, some people will say, no way, it's cheaper in America. But I am going to digress and say, I got this thing for about $200 cheaper here, and the phone plan and everything. And I get to keep this phone. I don't have to rent it and give it back. Far cheaper than I could get it in the United States. And I was shocked at that, because I had, under my understanding, that it was always going to be cheaper to get it in the States than it was out here. But with these companies, with the phones and everything, because they just changed over to a brand new model of this phone, that this is the newest one from just a few months ago, but because they had a new one that's released, this is now an old one. So I'm like, I'll take the old new one that was from last month, even though you have a newer one that has like a better resolution camera. So I got myself a new phone. You're going to have to think about some of these electronics. So just do an inventory around your house. Like, how about memory sticks? I got a bunch of these little ones that I'm always transferring files with, because I do a lot of data transfer between computers and things. Think about memory sticks, chips. Do you need any extra, SD cards for some of your cameras, security cameras, regular photography cameras, anything that you might need on the electronics side of things that are getting old that might need to be replaced? You want to think about, if you have the money, to maybe do an inventory and start thinking about getting into some of these yourself. Because, as we look, there's going to be a lot of disruption in electronics. Now, Ransom, could you take it over while I find this article? And once I get it, I will absolutely come on back and then bring it up, and I'll put it on the screen for you. You got to turn yourself off.
There we go. I made a boo-boo. Actually, I was going to point out this before we went to break there, that, I think it was like a month ago, I was talking about how the U.S. wouldn't have any, like the military and the government, and the U.S. would be the last to feel kind of the gas crunch, even though the gas prices are going up, that we would just take Venezuela's oil because we just acquired that. And here it is right here. I mean, this is exactly that. So it's talking about rising Venezuelan oil exports help insulate the U.S. from the energy crisis, because China was taking about 75% of the energy from Venezuela, and now we're taking 50%, and we're only allowing China to have 10%. So you got to ask yourself, why do we still let them have 10%? Because we're not ready to go to a full-fledged conflict with China yet. However, doing business around the world and trade disputes and people doing pirating, which David alleged to earlier about China starting to, talk about things not unlike the U.S., where they'll be seizing ships that they see as protecting their interests, which the United States has been doing. But like I said, the U.S. will just use Venezuelans' oil during this oil crunch. Is your camera off? Or are you still looking? I'm sorry. Anyway,
All right, so
is
I
it
got
too
you back
expensive
here.
to sell your house? Millions of Americans are holding on to empty homes, fearing that their tax hit sale would bring them. They're afraid to sell it. Stuff's too expensive. So not only do you not have enough houses, but then people that do have and still own their own homes are afraid to sell them.
Yeah, well, that's an income producing asset, especially if you're going to be able to grow food on that land and be able to claim it as your own and keep people off of it. You can't be thrown out of it except by a great reset or a pull in from the banks if they're going to swoop in all the mortgages under some sort of David Rogers web grade taking scenario, or you just
No,
default on it. Otherwise, you're pretty clean. You're going to be able to own that land, and hey, it's my property. Get the hell off of it.
well, unless you live in the Palisades or like what is that? Was that Maui? I forgot which one.
Yeah,
Which one
Maui or down in Lahaina.
Lahaina, that's right. Yeah. Unless you live in those places, you might not get to keep your property.
Yeah, geez. Okay, here we go. I got one for you. Let me share the screen. This is the specific types of plastic that we're looking at here. Can I maximize this?
Yeah.
So the next big thing on the radar here is going to be this type of polyethylene ether resin, PPE. Now, you see that green circuit board behind there that's blurred in the picture? I don't know why the picture didn't render correctly. But anytime of these printed circuit boards, that's where they stamp everything in there and you get the, like what we consider integrated circuits today. It's not the specific high-tech chips that are coming out of Taiwan as semiconductor chips. This is very different. This is just the printed circuit boards. Like that specific, I didn't realize that circuit board uses that type of resin only, polyethylene ethers, PPE resins, and right now, 70% of the global supply of that is behind the wall over in Iran or in the Strait of Hormuz on the backside of the wall. It cannot get out. So the polyethylene ether or PPE resin, often referred to as polyphenylene oxide, PPO, and these printed circuit boards, it uses the laminate because of its superior electrical performance at high frequencies, like 5G. Well, hopefully that'll stall because this is not available. Anything that you're going to be having in your phones or in your computers or any of these cameras, flock systems, anything 5G towers, any of this here that's running is not going to be manufactured. So the price surge is nothing because every company can deal with the prices. They'll just pass it on to you. So for a company to pay 40% more for something, big whoop, whatever. But that extended wait times of 3 to 15 weeks now. So used to take 3 weeks to order this, get it delivered. Now it's 15. I'm going to say it's going to be far beyond that because 70% of the global supply is offline. This is just another one of these things that's starting to go down. That's why I keep saying that as you think about it with electronics, this is the real deal here. Or is it a plan? I keep coming back to this seems more planned to turn these things off, to then turn off everything down chain from this. Because you disrupt this one circuit board here and everything else goes offline. You don't have to destroy and take everything offline and take that company down and this company goes down and that company down. You need to take one thing out of the entire manufacturing process, like remove tires, and we have no automobiles. You don't need to shut down the auto manufacturers. You need to disrupt the rubber supply and oil supply for the synthetic rubbers. That would totally destroy the entire auto manufacturing industry because we don't have any tires. Forget taking down the plants. You just need that one linchpin out of every single industry. And that seems like what's happening now. Plastics, take out the plastics. Everything else in the food packing industry stops. You don't need to stop the cows. You don't need to stop the farmers. You can delay them and hurt them by raising fuel prices and disrupting their fertilizer. But you take out the plastics and we got no food packing. That's the linchpin, is the plastics for our food supply. Fertilizers would be secondary. Now we take out the circuit boards. That's the full linchpin for everything electronic across the planet. Third, they're going to start hitting on the rubber supply. Watch it. Rubbers and synthetic rubbers, poof, our auto industry stops because they don't want you driving anymore. Cars take a beating and people are replacing tires all of the time. And then here we go, the scarcity. This is naphtha And this is what Formosa Petrochemical and Formosa Plastics has quit delivering all of their precursors or any of these things up to SK Hinks. That's the one up in out of the Hong Kong, Singapore, and the Korean manufacturers. But the Singapore manufacturers over in Malaysia. All that stops, all of it. So you're only taking a few very select raw materials offline, but you're destroying an incredible amount of industry at the same time. So here's the example, exactly what I was saying with the circuit boards here. I highlighted it in blue. You know, the low-hanging fruit is a computer and a phone, but coffee makers, cook stoves, dishwashers, refrigerators, washing machines, dryers, anything that uses electricity in our modern life, that's an appliance in your house, toasters, anything, microwave ovens, that's all going to be disrupted. TVs, medical systems, medical supplies. How about the blood tester to test your glucose or test your heart rate? Ooh, those are all the same kind of circuit boards that are required in there. So any kind of consumer or industrial machinery is just going offline. Would I say on purpose DVD players? I'm not sure.
Do people use
But I do
those
believe that's
still?
where we're going to sit with all of this. And I'll leave it there. And see if I can. Oh, wait. The reason I was trying to tell you this, let me connect this here to the Korean Times. Let me share this screen. And like you, I had to go and find these. Why Samsung labor union strike plan means more than corporate dispute for Korea. Okay, in addition to all of this, Samsung is going on strike. At the same time, the circuit boards are not available. And for those of you that understand Samsung, it is one of the largest suppliers of electronics on the planet. So we have these two things running in union together there. Can you believe it?
Nope.
Do you think it's random happenstance that these would be happening? And then if you go up to the money, you know, Korea's exchange rate is just atrocious right now. If we go into banking and finance, they hit like all-time record high exchange rate for the U.S. dollar, meaning their won, it was 1,200 for a dollar. And the last time I'd gone through, because I usually fly through either Seoul or Tokyo when I come back to Taiwan. The last time I went, it was 700. 700. Now it's 1,200. Not quite double, but that, you know, going through the airport would be cheaper. But of course, they would raise all the rates for that. And then, you know, I was going to do the same thing, like just roll through the headlines for a second here and see who's financing who and where is their exchange rate. LG, again, LG is going to struggle. So if you're looking at individual companies that are going to be affected by the circuit board shutdown or circuit board lack thereof materials, LG would be one of those. In addition to Samsung, both coming out of Korea, both major electronics producers on the planet. So you would look to these two companies to go, wow, that's kind of like our Mag 7 in America. These two for Korea are two of the largest companies in the Korean stock market. So if something were to happen to these two, like drastic drawdowns because they can't sell product because they just don't have the materials coming in, then what do you think is going to happen? Is the question. I mean, we're seeing this all over the planet. It's happening in every single nation. There's nothing that's random by all of this happening. I'm just absolutely unequivocally saying this is being done on purpose, linchpin by linchpin by linchpin, to cause the most disruption with the least amount of actual physical destruction. They're accomplishing more by removing these base materials than they would by destroying all of the world's manufacturing facilities. You don't need to do that. You just need to pull out what their main manufacturing good is at that base chain of supply, and it all stops. Like, just Ransom, what else do you think? Like, run through with a couple scenarios of goods that could be knocked out on a single supply issue of a manufacturing industry that we're currently in.
Well, I think automotive parts will be hit first because, or at least one of them, because they use a lot of these technologies to print things. Now, I put down in the bottom James Crouch there. He says PPE is also used for 3D printer build plates. He's, from what I know, an avid 3D printer enthusiast, I guess. Maybe, I don't know if you can call him that or not. Anyway, he has a YouTube channel and he 3D prints stuff on there sometimes when he's not playing with his bees. But I was going to ask him, like, what all of these products would he need to be building stuff. So I know for a fact that there's a whole new renaissance when it comes to building chips. So, all of the old chips that were pretty simple, and they did things like running audio equipment or your car, or, things like that. All of those can be printed with a 3D printer, where you outline, you basically plan out all the little spots where the metal goes and then pour the metal right into there. So you could build chips at home with this technology. Pretty easy. A lot of people are doing it. They're using it for different stuff, for lighting, for audio equipment, for, souping up their car, where they're taking out the CPU of some of the older cars and then hooking it up to something that they just created in a 3D printer, and then laid out the copper and the gold and stuff and the connections and all that. So you could tell that if those raw supplies are not around, people that do hobbying and people with know-how that could kind of fill the niche or the gap of parts manufacturing not coming in. So, like, for example, specifically the automotive industry, you can 3D print all kinds of things that you might not be able to get at the store because no one's making them. They can't get the plastics and stuff. But if you already had that plastic and you're 3D printing, you can do that. So that kind of disables that whole if I could speak right, the ingenuity of the home builder with these 3D printers. So for the last 15 years, or I would say, 3D printing has came into some real popularity, where the private sector, individual people, have got to dabble with it, and they've come up with some amazing things. But then they started realizing, it's kind of a disruptive technology, because literally you can make chips and circuit boards from home, right? If you have the metal and you have the plastic, you can build your own stuff, which circumvents being dependent on tech companies for at least basic stuff. And you were listing some of the applications that you could use it for, like ovens, toasters, microwaves, stuff like that, that has the older style big soldering chips. They're pretty easy. You could map it out. You can print it out and then replace it yourself. So they're kind of taking away that technology before it even gets going, and that's just via plastic shortages.
Yeah, and and then if you start to look in aviation as well, but all of these things have been planned for us through this Agenda 2030 and the Great Reset. I bought that book. I bought two books actually. The one from Alex Jones, The Great Reset, and I also bought the one from Klaus Schwab with the blue cover from The Great Reset. And I read a majority of both of them. That's the reason I have some of these insights into. It's not even an insight. It's just I'm regurgitating what I read from these people who are saying and know all the plans about this new movement forward from where we sit today to where we're going. There's a plan for this. It's not like we're reading the news and trying to come up with all this together. We're reading the news and just going, oh, that checks the box of exactly what their plan was to get us to here. It's that simple. And the plan was less flights, less driving, less everything, less electronics. You're only going to get a few new things per year if your social credit score is on par with you being a good citizen and never criticizing anything. And that's where it sits. And this is the projection moving forward. And so far, it seems pretty, on cue of they have an enormous amount. These are trillionaires that are moving the planet in this direction. They own governments. They own companies. They own finance. They own banks. They own central banks. They own banks that the Bank for International Settlements, the Bank for All Central Bank Clearing, is owned by these same people. So I really wonder why there's ever a financial crisis in the world when they're the ones who control all the central banks in the first place. These things are meant on purpose to put things in motion.
Right.
In the world we live in, there should never be another financial crisis. There should be zero. There should be enough food for everybody. There should be totally world peace, but there's not, because they feed on our emotions, these ethereal beings, just a step back from our light wave perception in a different dimensionality, like a sliver of one behind ours that feed off of our emotions. They're the ones that are giving wealth and power to these that have wealth and power. And then this cycle continues, has been for like 7,000 years. So it's not a new thing anyway. I was going somewhere and I lost my point. So maybe, I was trying to, let me jump on this one here. I had another one for you. The reason I was saying that is this is a script, absolutely a script. Gas reaches $4.30 a gallon. Trump says prices will drop after Iran war. Well, so far, all assessment is the Iran war is not going to stop for months and months and months and months and months from now. But when does gasoline prices normally really go up? When do normally, just on a seasonal, just do a one whole
Summer.
year? Summer. If we're already going
It's
into
always that way.
elevated prices and we're coming in summer driving season, this is going to be $6, $8 a gallon. Some people are predicting $10 a gallon by August here if this thing does not stop in the next week or two. Not next month or two, get me wrong, next week or two. And we're looking at $10 a gallon gasoline by August. I don't know how many businesses function, especially delivery services like you waiting on your Uber Eats and all that stuff. You're not. You're going to have to cook at home. And all these companies and all these gig workers, they're not going to, and unfortunately for them, not many people are going to be ordering because the price to even for them to deliver is just going to skyrocket. Like people aren't going to pay 50% more to get their food because they're paying fuel surcharges. You know, and I'm looking here on this, petrol prices. Oh, great. It's going to go at 30, jumping up 30 cents a week. $5.19. These were the griping days when Biden was in office. $4.94. Now it's over $6 in California. I saw a bunch of articles where they were pushing above $6. And I would encourage everybody to come up here anyway to come up to Al Jazeera. This is one of the most, I would say, more balanced of the Middle Eastern news publications, since we were talking about mainstream media today. Now, tracking the shadow fleet, like they do that, tracking the shadow fleet, what's the number of vessels that have breached the U.S. blockade compared to what we're seeing in our news? And let's just click on this one here. So using fake flags, shell companies, disabling tracking signals in a vast network of vessels bypass the U.S. blockade. Well, in our news, it sounds like we've caught every one. There's like 0 that got through. But so far, there have been dozens, if not hundreds of these that have sailed through. And the Strait of Hormuz, they give you a little breakdown on that stuff. Like, this is very much Middle East centric on the news. Soaring fuel prices in Pakistan threaten economic and political chaos. So Pakistan is another one that's going to flare off first because they spend 45% of their disposable income on food already. So look at the Pakistan fuel import bill from 300 to 800 billion. That's almost triple. So they're going to get hit with 3x fuel price increases too. Like nobody's going to absorb that cost. So you have to think about how Pakistan's even going to deal with this. And they're right next to India that's experiencing all types of ridiculous problems right now. Like India's at the break point. They still are having problems delivering rice out to everybody. And Iran's storage is nearly full. So once it goes full, they're going to shut down their production, meaning that it's going to take them about 30 days to bring production back on after they shut it off. China's racing to get the fuel out of there before they shut it off. This is the thing. China's fuel supply is here. Once the storage is completely full, they can fill the pipes behind it, and the pipes become the storage facility. They have some ships in port that are loading or loaded, and they're at 100% capacity. They can't fill the pipes anymore. The storage tanks are full. All the ships are full. This is a picture of Karg Island here. At that point, China's trying to race there to get the fuel out so they don't stop production. They're sending multiple ships. So I think they're trying to pull about 25 million barrels out of that supply on the ships China's sending all in one tanker fleet. So there's a lot of geopolitical, chessboard pieces moving around right now here. And, if you do dive in, they talk about how they just confiscated 300 million worth of crypto. That was Iran's crypto. So again, you start to look at this, like how safe is the stable coins across the planet? Because we talked about the U.S. treasuries being seized as they did with Russia. But now they said that they seized $300 million worth of cryptocurrency, stable coins from Iran's network or so. So you got to think about how, even though they're targeting and trying to tell us we're moving to crypto, stable coins aren't safe too if they can be frozen on the wallet, which they just did. They froze 300 million worth of Iranian stable coins. So the entire crypto ecosystem is moving too, and it was meant to bend in a certain direction. It was too free. Now it's being bent in a different direction. Please check out Al Jazeera. It's a great little resource for those of you who are looking for Middle Eastern news. Again, mainstream, but a little more, you're going to get deeper analysis over there from those people.
A couple of years ago, I remember you brought to mind an article that I covered when we were just, snowballing about the idea of an upcoming global conflict before this started. You could go back and watch our shows. We were talking about how the countries were rebranding their borders, they were taking resources, that things were about to start changing. And we talked about how the straits, like the Strait of Hormuz, would be a pivotal factor in that. And now we're here in the future. But we also talked about a phenomenon that was going on at that time called the shadow fleeting. Remember that? That China, India, Pakistan, Iran, all these different countries were doing exactly that, where they were taking off the tracking technology, the transponders, and different things, and setting up an entire shadow fleet to get out of the net of basically the world government tracking system. And we were talking about exactly that. And now that's exactly what's happening. You got, according to that chart we looked at a minute ago, only 4 ships have gone by. But it's a great question. How many are floating around out there with no transponder, with no electronic, identifying thing, and not being tracked, shipping goods, which, that's where all of the black market stuff comes up, countries dealing in gold and oil and guns and things like that without, capitulating to the sanctions of any one country. And we know that there's going to be a lot of back dealings. And you were talking about China and, all of these chips and manufacturing and the delivery services and all that. And you mentioned the gig guys. So I'm going to bring this up and just show you some, it's sign of the times, I guess. So I think it'll happen over here too, just the same thing. As you've been seeing swaths of the economy being overtaken by AI and jobs just evaporating around everyone. Here's a story from CCP moves to tighten oversight of gig workers, and they're talking about how they want to micromanage and keep track. And keep in mind, this is China that already has Dragon software credit, social credit score system set up, and mass surveillance. Not unlike what's going on in the United States, we just don't shove it in everyone's face as much, but it's still being set up here. Flock cameras, facial recognition, the entire, length of ways that they're spying on us. And right now, the government, the same government that complained that there was illegal spying done on their campaign and on them personally, is okay to set up that same secret court and spying surveillance program again. So ironically, the people that complained about being illegally spied on are now going to go ahead and vote to continue the illegal spying. But back to what the point is, that I see this kind of thing moving to the United States, where bigger and bigger portions of microeconomics, meaning like food delivery specifically, or tech services, or customer service centers, where they're taking care of different things. They're going to be super spied on, and I think the reason for that is they know that this population of people is very tech savvy, and they've already set up logistics using these same companies that are going to outsource their jobs for AI. And so what do you think these big swaths of people are going to do when their jobs disappear totally? Like the delivery service people, the tech people, the customer service people, and we're talking millions and millions of people from different countries. Think of India, China, all over the place. You have people in positions that are going to be replaced soon by AI. And now the government wants to keep an extra special, tracking of those people, because I think they're worried about future riots. We talked about last time of people upset that, everything has gone out of their control. There's not a job for them. It's been taken over. And then we're talking about, these $200 billion future of stuff. And you see it in real time on here. I shared this on our Civilization Cycle Telegram channel. The baggage handler, somebody said, I'm happy because, I'm tired of them destroying all my stuff when I fly. But this is just another one of these low skilled jobs that can be easily replaced. And if you don't think they can streamline this robot to do it way better, you're wrong. Of course, this is just an anecdotal look into the future with these. They keep using these same cute robots, but there it is. That's probably, there's some guy's job right there. And then,
Oh, well, they don't show you really how agile and nimble those things are. I mean, they're giving you the whole cartoon version. Hello,
right,
blue animal.
right. And that's not
Those
even the
things are
military
they
versions.
can lift. I was seeing they could lift something like 5 times more than a human reliably. I read that article too. For me, that thing, they didn't show you that it could lift 500 pounds and just move it like a human could move
or
100
or
pounds.
or do like 10 backflips and a karate kick and use a semi-automatic rifle pretty efficiently. And they don't want to show
Pick
you
up
that
2
stuff.
carry-on bags and swirl them and hit you in the head with it.
Yeah, but just think about that. Soon it'll be everything airline will be robotic or AI. Panic as United Airlines flight strikes a drone at 3,000 feet over San Diego. Now, this wasn't one of those nefarious drones that they got everybody worried about that might fly in and we might have to use our new laser drone system that they're implementing all over the place, along with the flock cameras to keep track of every single last, automotive device that moves around on the road. But they're going to use incidents like this to not only take away the private ownership of these technologies, just like we were talking about with the 3D printing. They're ending any of these technologies that give the advantage to the individual to do things that they couldn't normally do without technology. And they're going to be using these things to get rid of it. And then back to this idea of the meat, and the food prices and the inflation, you might not have to worry about it too long about how much the beef prices are. And I don't want to get into this because I know we'll get in trouble, because despite there being CIA declassified documents about this, if you ask the AI will say that it's completely natural, that the Lone Star tick is spreading into new areas, and the disease that it's carrying with them is, it's been around since the age of the pharaohs. So, that's all conspiracy theory. However, it is a reality that people are getting meat allergies from beef that they ate or when they got bit by one of these ticks. And, it's just right in time for all the other things. You've had a decade or two actually of the greenies telling you need to stop killing the animals. The cows are producing farts. We have to produce all this food to feed them, to feed us. It's all, bad for the environment. Well, I think ticks that make you allergic to the food that's out there. And I've seen, I'm going to say hundreds now of videos of wildlife like moose, elk, reindeer, deer, foxes, and things like that dead because millions of ticks made them anemic, and then they eventually succumbed to the bug infestation.
I've had a fair few ticks on me though, because I got the farm, and we get ticks all the time. And so far I've had no meat allergies, at least where we are, but we get there's multiple types of ticks down where we live.
Yeah, you got
Lone Star tick, that's only one.
right. You got the seed ticks and the deer ticks, and
Yeah, deer
on and
ticks
on
are
and on.
huge and just plentiful as well.
And then how long till these problems spread into the other tick species? Never know.
I don't know. I was trying to think of a fun tick word to use to answer you in a single tick phrase of something, but I can't think of. There's not too many tick words in the English language that could rhyme with something.
Well, it's kind of funny. It's like the elite saying "suck on this" because you're not going to eat meat. We're going to eat meat, but you're not going to eat meat. You're going to eat the bugs, and I don't want to eat the ticks. Is that what's going to happen? We're going to have to go hunting for ticks to get protein.
I hear you. Hey, let me throw one up here on the screen also. I wanted to come back into the e-bikes here. China's confiscating all the e-bikes. Why is that? Well, they're trying to say that they're not. Wait, how'd that get off there? You pop up. So there's a massive campaign right now to eradicate all these e-bikes. So there's about 120 million e-bikes on the roads, up from 50,000 a decade ago. I mean, if you've been to China, you see they're like silent killers. I mean, you just don't hear them coming, and people are hauling ass on those things. But the amount of e-bikes that are out there, they keep saying, and now here's the new thing, that they're saying 95% of the e-bikes do not meet the 1999 standards. Okay. Well, that's 1999. That's 26 years ago. Are you telling me the manufacturers haven't updated their standards for manufacturing? Like, this whole thing stinks to high heaven too. Because what they're trying to do is say, all of you gig workers and all these people that use e-bikes for work, to go to work, deliver food, like you're right, a huge amount of the economy in China revolves around e-bikes. So people are super, super, super angry right now. And they're calling it the killing season in China, because people get just so angry at the government. And they just do all these, they're just driving cars into people. There's a guy, really good guy, his name is Serpentenza. Followed this guy for years. He does Chinese analysis on YouTube, like a couple other Chinese analysis. I forget that comedian that does like China, not China Daily, but China Uncensored. That's another one, funny one to watch, China Uncensored. And Serpentenza, he's talking about this is really driving people to just commit atrocious crimes. Just people are so angry at this. They're just going in and confiscating thousands and thousands of e-bikes. Like they went into a university and pulled out like 2,000 bikes, and the students couldn't do a single thing or say a single thing because if they said one word, or stood up to even stand and go, "What are you doing with my bike?" their social credit score was reduced. So you had all these people just like, you could see the anger almost boiling off of them where they weren't allowed to say a single one word without their social credit score being demolished south.
Right. The government's like, do something, say something.
Not even a single word. No, one word reduced your social credit score. A single one word. That's so scary. And then they got the mass seizures here. And this is really creating a huge problem. Like people are just so beyond themselves on super anger of this thing here. So, I mean, what do you do when something is so reliant on your economy and then you take that means of anybody to go to work or have a job away? Like what if they removed all cars in America, like you said? If you don't have a new car that we can track you and turn off your car, then you can't have a car.
Right. You can't ride that hot rod.
Sell my farm, and I did leave the States for a little bit because I have 2 residences. And I'm over here for a minute trying to suss things out and get our second place. Ejection seat ready. If this ejection seat fails, Sumba Island is Indonesia's the last ejection seat area. So no, I didn't sell my farm. I'd never sell. That's insane why I would sell my farmland. No way. That's passed down generationally. That ain't getting sold. So what if it was coming to that? What if you took away all these cars from Americans because they were too old? Like I have, people were in the beginning were like, why do you keep that old truck? Because I have the old truck that doesn't track me, trace me, and it can't be shut down.
But you can keep it, but we're not going to give you insurance for it.
Yeah, or something like that. Like if you get caught on you, we know that model of car, that certain range, it can't be insured. So if you're on the road, you're driving illegally. So we're just going to pull you over and confiscate your truck. It's like going to come down to something like that.
That movie I, Robot, when the guy takes over manual control, the lady freaks out because he's driving himself. And then later in the movie, they get on a motorcycle and she realizes that she's riding on the gasoline bomb. Oh my God. Because he had to get something that wasn't controlled by the system. So it was an old school gasoline powered motorcycle. And the way that they showed the propaganda in the future is that was completely shocking. Not only one, to drive it yourself, but 2, that it's got petroleum in it, even though a battery will make a bigger explosion.
Yeah, and the fires can't be put out. I can extinguish a gasoline fire, but it's hard to extinguish a lithium-ion battery fire. Nearly impossible.
Right.
So I don't know. Somebody said, can you tell me more about Sumba Island? Yeah, it's in Indonesia, and if you go east from Bali, you'll come you got Sumatra, Java, and Sumba. These are the largest islands. Well, I mean, you could say Sulawesi, but that's divided between a few countries and things.
Don't tell them, David. Don't tell them, because every time you tell somebody about a nice spot, everybody shows up there.
Yeah, it's kind of, you got to remember, you're going to drop back in time there. There's no track and trace. There's no flock cameras. You're dropping back in time. And that's the whole reason it's survivable. If you're able to live off a local seasonal diet, have electricity, but not have some internet, not a lot, but enough to be functional where you can get out, but not watch streaming videos and stuff. You got internet.
You're going to get out there on the beach chair and you're going to relax. You're going to start drinking your Mai Tais, and you're going to look up and realize that the palm tree next to you is actually it's a 5G phone tower. I've seen them that are the palm trees. We have the pine trees here, but I have seen the palm tree ones.
Yeah, and also the cost of living there. Like if you're looking at Indonesia, it's gotten really expensive in like Jakarta and some places on Java Island, central Java is getting really pricey comparatively to what it used to be. Like Bali, give it a break. Even Lombok's getting super pricey. Like you got to go way up in like northern Sumatra or like some of the outer islands that aren't really well known. Then you get back to real Indonesian prices again. Like you can live reasonably in Indonesia, and it's such a large island too. Like the population is not that big on the island, and they could way overgrow everything they need. The population density isn't there. The fishing around that area is immense. You're on the open ocean side going down to Australia. Like once you leave that open ocean there on the west side or at the south side of the island, the next stop for land is Australia. You got big waves rolling in if you like surf. On the backside of the island, you got like incredible reefs and thing. Fishing and like I say, the arable land there is just outrageous because it was volcanic. The dormant volcanoes. I mean, the amount of food production there is off the hook. Very traditional still, and they have a couple cultural significant areas there that still practice some animism, and they're on their own things. Hasn't really been touched by modernism, and that's the whole greatest thing about it. It understands modernism, but it hasn't been engulfed by it. It touches the thread of it. It's a little more convenient, but it hasn't embraced it to that's going to be our new lifestyle. It's walking the thread between two different worlds. And I really believe that, the research I've done, unless a world war comes like Guadalcanal. So I will say one thing about this projection. There was one guy in Australia back in the 1940s, and he saw the World War coming, and it was super clean. The war war's coming. It's going to engulf every nation on the planet. It's going to be just a war zone everywhere on the world. He's like, I'm going to move to this island nobody's ever heard of before. And this is, you got to realize, in the 1940s. And he's like, this island called Guadalcanal, damn, nobody's ever heard of this. You can't even barely find it on the maps. I'm going to go there and just ride the war out. And we know all about Guadalcanal now. That was the wrong choice.
It was.
So everything, all of his best laid plans, he got out there, he set up his whole thing. He was had part of the island. He got all his food production, coke, and his dude's sitting pretty, man, fishing every day, enjoying the life. And then they all had to flee. And he had to leave everything except one bag that he could carry. Him and his family.
You just got
to carry one bag out of there.
I mean, you can't pick it perfect, obviously. I mean, something might happen that you can't see. Like, even if you picked up here in the Rocky Mountains, what if Yellowstone blows? You're screwed.
Yeah.
But for the last several millions and millions of years, it's been pretty stable around here, and we're high enough up that I don't think any global flood will touch me. Now, you on those islands, you might, like somebody was putting, I love it with the tsunamis and whatnot.
Oh, so the island's like 1,500 feet tall. I mean, it's not like a flat island.
You could run up to the top of the volcano just in time.
Oh, there's lots of hill spots up there too. Yeah, I thought about that when I was looking at the tsunamis. Now, you'd have to have a 1,000-foot tsunami before that would start rolling over a lot of things. Because you got to realize, when water comes up, if it can't find a way to go around, it's going to come up and over. But if it can find its way around,
right,
like a volcano, it's going to go around it, not over it, because the path of least resistance is around it. That's why pyramids are so good, because it goes around.
Well, I don't know if there will be a place on the earth that you could hide if we actually go into a global conflict. And, all arrows point to that as a must that's going to happen. It's got to be worked out on Earth. You can look back at the George Orwell stuff, or, you could look at the Trilateral Commission or any of the think tanks, and they're all planning for the same thing. It's an eventual global conflict, and China is America's military equal now, except for navally, but they're working on it. And any future fight, Marine General warns, is going to be a big deal with them. But, they're not the only ones planning for the future. Putin is back in it with the nuclear weapons development, as is the United States, which brings us to, Iran. And for some of those may not like the war, some of them are for the war, whatever your thing is. One thing is clear, that the supreme leader has said, that we belong at the bottom of the Persian Gulf. But not only that they do indeed want a nuclear weapon, and they're going to get one, whether we like it or not. Even if, they're starving to death, evidently, over there, because, we're talking about all these global economies. Theirs is one of the worst ones that's going to be hit unless China and Russia give them a crutch and help them out. And then, like you said, that'll lead to conflicts between us and them.
No, but maybe that's the plan.
Yeah.
Because China sending like 20 some or as many, I don't know the exact number. They just talk about a large number of oil carriers, VLCCs, are going over there to Iran at the same time. A fleet of them, no less, to get oil and break the American blockade. Like, if that's the plan, and then be an analyst, like, if China's going to do that, what's going to happen? Do you think America's going to let them through? Because if it is, it's going to be an embarrassment for America, and they're going to be like,
right.
Everybody's just going to be like, whatever, dude, we're going to take all of our ships over there too.
We'll probably elect a Democrat president, and then we'll act like things have changed, and we'll let them, because we don't really want to go to conflict with them yet. We're waiting to a specific time for some reason. I don't know what it is exactly that'll trigger that, but it could be this. I mean, think about it. We have given intel to the Ukrainians to bomb Russian things. Russia responded by giving intel to the Iranians about where our ships were and what we were doing. And China has been floating around and, hanging out in the area, letting ships use their transponders for ships they want to travel around, things like that. So it is intensifying. And really, the question is, are Americans wealthy enough to withstand it, and for how long? While everything
No.
else falls apart everywhere else, we're going to be one of the last ones hit, but we'll be hit just like everyone else eventually. But that's okay, because
No, we're not
Palantir.
strong enough. We're not economically strong enough. I was reading a report that 50% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. If you jack their gasoline to $10, turn off their jobs, make everything 50 to 100% more expensive in a month or two, there's no way to survive that. That's what Iran was counting on,
Well, not
that
to
we would
mention,
choke first
they don't.
before they would.
I think
It would be too painful for us.
I think it's about 70% of Americans don't have more than $1,000 in their savings account or their checking account or whatever it is. They don't have those emergency funds. Like even back in 1990, I remember people telling me that I needed at least $5,000 just for any random emergency that might happen. And that is not part of your savings. That is just a crutch in case something unexpected happens. And now like 70 to 90% of the country doesn't have access to that kind of emergency funds, and so they're going to be spending whatever they do have on medicines, food, gasoline, until there's absolutely nothing left in the tank.
Yeah, and there's 15% of the generic drug manufacturing is offline in the Middle East too, so that's not being delivered. So that's creating a shortfall of generic drugs across the planet. So those prices of generics are increasing as well. Ransom, you and I had talked about this. I forget how many years ago it was. For like, hey, what if you put 10% of your paycheck after your take-home earnings, just 5 or 10% of it into gold or silver, and just buy that, and just that's your savings account. Don't put it in the bank. Just buy and use 5% of your net earnings, or 10% of it, and just put it into silver or gold, and then just leave that on the side. And if that, since that time, would have been at least if silver was hovering around like $28 when we did that experiment.
Right.
Now it's 75. It went up to 125. You would be far better off had you taken a little bit, 5-10% of your money, and bought silver or gold with that every single month or every single 2 weeks or however you get paid, and put that in your savings account. And plus, that's money that is tangible and cannot be confiscated. It will hold value, has for thousands of years. And I don't know how many people took our advice, but I took that advice, and I'm super happy I did. That was our own experiment and our own advice to ourselves during those shows.
It's sad, because what the problem is that group of Americans that doesn't have savings, you can't convince them that it's justified to spend a portion of whatever they get in their increment on something like that, because they just don't understand it and they can't spend it. They need to spend it before the month's up, before they get paid again. That's the problem a lot of people have. But yeah, if you had a little bit of extra, you'd be doing good right now.
Yeah, even 1 ounce of silver a month, if that is all you could afford, just after 24, 36 months. Think about that. Those 36 ounces of silver at $28 are now worth, say 80, and that would be, that's a little nest egg right there. If you need to cash it in and something super, super emergency, you have that, the value of it. And there's a lot of people who want those silver coins that would definitely give you close to fair value for those, versus a depleting dollar that's, getting shagged every 2 to 4% per year on inflation. They say it's 2, but it's far higher. So you're losing money by holding dollars. I try to get rid of my dollars. I got working thing, I got expenses every month that I keep that in. But if it's barely above it, I scrape it out and throw it into something else. I can't. Yeah, I can't. There's something going on here.
Well, I had some more to show you guys, but we're about to run out of time, so I thought I'd leave us with this: the unusual
Yeah, leave us with some
earthquakes.
UFOs, late nighters. Thank you for joining, everybody.
Right.
BuyMeACoffee.com/Civilization Cycle. Support us so we can keep this broadcast running to you week after week. And the Civilization Cycle podcast.com, or it is the civilizationcycle.com for the podcast website. Put your email in there. We'll get you the show notes of what we talked about today, 10 bullet points, along with some graphics and a few takeaways from the show.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure that this is nuclear testing, but who knows what it is with all the increased, interest in them releasing the UFO files. But I have a feeling that the UFO files will look like the Einstein files, and you're not going to get anything out of them. To say they might give you a couple of grainy FLIR videos, that's been reduced
From the
3 times.
1950s.
But what's funny about that is it reminded me of this other article that I was reading. I'm weird and I connect these. This is a story about a disappearing city that just disappeared off the map. It was a Arabic
Wait, how deep was it?
Islamic
How deep was it, and where was it? I'm saying 40 feet at some Kyrgyzstan. Okay, 40 foot is the
Kyrgyzstan.
depth I'm calling before I even see anything.
All right, see, yeah, I didn't even look at the depth there. It's just underwater.
Where's the depth? You're looking for the depth on it. I'll show right 13
13
feet
feet.
deep. Oh, okay.
How about that? Yeah, but no, people forget that the ground that they sit on, this is the only reason I brought this up, sometimes could just disappear. Like you were talking about a minute ago. It doesn't matter where you plan on going. There's some kind of, factor there that could lead to your demise. So there's no reason to doom and gloom about it. You can just, plan and prep accordingly. And hopefully, where you're at won't have too many problems. But to skip over to this, it looks like the U.S.
Well, live every day as
here.
if you're living in Pompeii.
Right. Should have been retreating there in Pompeii. They just found a guy that was running through the streets with a shield over his head. So we know that he was trying to protect himself from fallen stuff, but he ended up getting buried within 20 feet of ash. Waited to the last minute to try to leave. Anyway,
don't do that, folks. Please get yourself in safety before all this comes down. You already know what's coming, so just plan accordingly.
This might add to the food cost right here. So if you got enough water, you better be gardening enough, at least for you and maybe for your neighbors or, the family, to cushion the price at the grocery store. Because it looks like, we're going to have some wild weather this year. You were talking about maybe a super El Nino.
Yeah, the Super Nino. Get ready for it. Drought in America, Dust Bowl, reduced food crops. And they're actually talking about, through the Super Nino, food being reduced planet-wide. So who's scratching? Which one's wagging which tails on which dogs on here? Because is it really the fuel supply or the diesel shortages that are reducing food supply? Now we need to add another whole layer of a Super El Nino reducing food supply. So is the whole thing that we're trying to wipe out the entire world's food production here this year and take us into a global famine, even in the developed nations? That's what I'm saying. Buy food, store food, prep food. Should have some extra food if you could. Because all things pointing, now this Super Nino, they're really hammering it home. It's going to be the hottest temperatures ever. We're coming into serious drought conditions across the planet. And food is absolutely going to take a hit. Now, a couple articles I've read mentioned back in the early 1800s, a Super Nino that wiped out 4% of the global population because of, reduced food production. Are they pointing us that direction too, to tell us there's going to be massive percentages of global, population wiped out because of these events? It was 4% for the global El Nino. How many percent will it be for the fuel disruptions from the Middle East? Then you sandwich those on top. Are we looking at a 10% reduction? Another 800 million go bye-bye? Then what does that bring us down to? Manageable? No, they wanted a 500 million. So anyway, I appreciate you joining us tonight. This Civilization Cycle podcast live show every Thursday night, 10 p.m. to midnight. We're up on YouTube, Rumble, X, BitChute, and support us where you can. The Civilization Cycle, buy me a coffee page. We'll see you next week. Bye for now.